Hey, welcome to episode 41 of Women Seeking Wholeness. I'm Cherie Burton, your host, and today we're going to dive deep into a topic that I think might be sort of controversial for some people, but like if you're in that realm of like just wanting to heal the planet and you're pretty versed in understanding what different modalities are out there holistically, this won't be that far off for you. For some people, you may have a struggle with it. I did about 20 years ago, but now I'm being a lot more vocal because I realize there's a lot more women awakening to their gifts. And the reason for that is feminine energy is literally streaming onto the planet right now, right and left, in men and women and children. So it's time for us to embrace our gifts and to gather and have that validation as a collective that, hey, this is legit. So this might be an important episode for many of you who yourself have been going through sort of awakenings or transitions or wonderment in your life where you feel like you're being called to something innate and it's spiritual and it has depth to it. And then please share this with your friends who may be on the cusp of that as well. And I know a lot of you listening are already in the space of embracing that and developing those gifts. So this will be added witness and validation for the path that you're on. Now, I also want to speak to Marlo's gifts. You know, we will share our story of how we connected, and I never believe there's any accidents with people who connect of like mind and desire to help shift and heal humanity. And so it's just fun how we reconnected, but she is very good at what she does. She's very intuitive. She's very strong. She's very grounded and very wise. And so I think you'll all enjoy this episode. And just as a reminder, in 2 weeks is my Stand, Speak, Shine retreat. And a lot of this stuff, I don't know, I attract women who are on the cusp of awakening or who are into full-blown awakening. I probably need to do just a whole episode on what is awakening. But basically, it's just like you feel like you've been asleep for a long time and you're finally arousing your faculties, getting in touch with who you actually are versus what you've been told you are. And it's a very empowering and can be a very fragile and scary and vulnerable place to be. So my Stand, Speak, Shine retreat is October 24th through 26th. I think I have 5 spaces left. So reach out to me, Cherie at CherieBurton.com. Let me know if you're interested. I'll see what we can do to squeeze you in. I priced it super, super, super low. It's a 5-star resort. It's a healing space. It's beautiful who we're bringing in, Amber Richardson. So anyway, reach out to me on that and enjoy this episode of So You Just Found Out You're a Healer. Now what? Marlo, thank you so much for your willingness to, I kind of grabbed you last minute. You reached out to me about being a guest and I'm so grateful that you were available because I've had just a crazy life the last couple of weeks and apparently one of my guests did as well. And so I was like, I need a cool guest. And I know that you and I live in the same community and we kind of crossed paths because, well, why don't you share with people, maybe our stories differ, but like, it's so crazy to me how I meet different people, how we venture onto each other's paths. And I think it's a curious thing maybe for our listeners too. So every single guest that I have on, except for maybe 2, I've had a personal connection to in one way, shape or form. So I love how it all works.
Mm-hmm. It's all in God's plan for sure. So very interestingly, so I was in a business training. I used to have a dance studio. I was a dance teacher. I thought my whole life I was going to be Miss Marlo and teach girls how to learn to think for themselves and through learning how to choreograph and learn to love their bodies through dance and learn how to be independent emotionally. So that was my passion for my dance studio. And in the course of running the dance studio, I was also getting business trainings. And at one of the business trainings, the coach there says, you should run for Mrs. Utah. And that's not anything I had ever, thought of doing, but I started thinking about it. And I had some friends that had been in the pageant and that spoke really highly of it and had good experience that some of them won the title. And so I just, after a few months, I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and just try it, because if you don't try things, you don't know what you could be missing out on, or you don't know what you could be learning from it, or what development you could have, or what sorts of things could happen. And then somebody, I don't know who, recommended you as a coach for the pageant because you had won the pageant a couple of years before. And so we talked on the phone, and then I ended up not having a coach, which was fine. But I had one, but she ended up not being as serious as what I thought she was going to be. But so, and I didn't win the pageant, but that was fine with me too. I got Miss Congeniality, which meant a lot to me because it was from the people who actually knew me, where the people in the pageantry circuit didn't know me. And also something else came up. I had put on my form that I was an emotional release healer. And that one of the judges took real offense to that because he's in therapy. So, like traditional therapy.
Traditional.
So yeah. Yeah. So he was trying to get me banned from the pageant, actually. And he hadn't even met me, and I have no scandal or anything about me. It's just weird that we're talking about this. But he was saying that I was going to ruin the pageant because
Wow.
and I know. And the director was like, what? Because I was actually one of the ones that they thought was going to be first or second runner up. Just by, the other ones that had experience in pageantry and just other people tell me yeah, you kind of look like, somebody, and some of the other contestants were like, yeah, this did not really reflect what you gave to the pageant. But I think the reflection was in getting so I did the pageant, but he basically scored me a 0 on everything. Wouldn't look at me when I was up there. Turned his head really sharply against me whenever I was on stage.
That's interesting.
I know. And
that happened to me at Nationals.
He did not like
that exact same thing happened to me at Nationals.
Did it?
Uh-huh. There was one judge, and she's actually kind of a celebrity figure, or was at the time. And she grilled me on being a wholesome woman from Utah and how was I going to handle diversity and all these things. And I don't think she liked my answers because my answers were diverse. My answers were nuanced. They weren't
diverse.
Absolute.
Yeah.
And so she knocked me out of the running. I came in 12th overall still, but she knocked me out of the top.
Even with that.
The top 10. Yeah. So it's interesting, but those things happen for a reason. And you know what? Pageants are so metaphorical. They're so metaphorical for life. Because at any given moment in time, a woman is on a stage of some sort. And she has a panel of judges in front of her. And some of them don't like her. Not everyone's going to like you. I have had to come to that realization. I'm going to trigger some people. And some people are just going to love me.
Yeah.
And think I'm amazing. And then some people are going to just be so repelled by me. And there's nothing. God himself has experienced that. So I figure if a lot of God's children can handle his style and his way and whatever, at least in this life.
Did you know there's a hate site for Mother Teresa? You know that there's people that dedicate their lives to this hate site for Mother Teresa. So if somebody like Mother Teresa,
what?
A hate site for Mother Teresa.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so that just seals the deal. Yeah.
It seals the deal. And I walked away from the pageant, and I just felt very good for getting the congeniality because those people, the other contestants actually knew me on a personal basis, and the other guy didn't know me. He just saw emotional release. This is wrong, So I left the pageant, and what happened is I felt extremely exhausted. My husband was helping me put my stuff in the trunk. And then all of a sudden I felt complete lift, like angels coming literally to me, lifting all of the exhaustion, lifting all of the trauma, if you want, because it's exhausting, get up on stage and lifting all of that off of me. And I felt in complete peace. I felt completely grounded and centered, and actually felt more driven for who I was than I ever had in my life. And so I feel like it doesn't matter the outcomes of things, is if you're in alignment for what you're supposed to be doing in life. And the pageant was a take it or leave it as far as God saw it, as far as what the results were. But the experience that I got there was, even amidst this opposition, that I walked away from that feeling completely at peace. I felt no pain. I felt no fear. It just all lifted. And it's I literally felt a horde of angels coming to me and removing it, because that was really truly who I was.
So interesting I've heard so many pageant stories over the years. I used to coach the Miss Utah. She went over to nationals. And of course, the one you and I did was the Mrs. Utah. And I hear a variation on the same theme of women who feel drawn to it. Cause I mean, if somebody receives a title, there's some respect to that, right? And in some people's eyes and in other people's eyes. I mean, it was a huge door opener for me and a lot of, even for the Utah Attorney General asking me to come and sit on the State Suicide Prevention Council because I held the title, and it just opened up a lot of doors.
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of stigma, and so having the service mindset around it. But I hear the variation on the same theme is women have this desire to merge their beauty, like their exterior self, with their purpose. And they may not have the conscious awareness that that's why they're drawn to do the pageant, but they need a spark. They need a deadline. They need something to attach to where it's more pronounced for them. And of course, not everyone does a pageant. I mean, some people might choose to do that in business. Some people might choose to do that in church. Some people, or in their community or something. Yeah. But the actual metaphorical power of a pageant is, this is life. You are always on a stage. You are always influencing people, the way you carry yourself, the way you move, the way you voice, your wardrobe, your hair, your connection. And there's always a panel of judges that are sitting right there watching you. And if they get triggered by you, it's only because there's something inside of themselves that is not healed, that you're opening up for them to see.
Exactly.
But let me just tell you this really fast, and then we can get into the meat of our conversation. I actually, when I was Mrs. Utah, I did a workshop for women, and a really beautiful soul came, and she was this homeschooling mom who was kind of stuck in, the throes of motherhood and trying to be everything she could be spiritually and all these things. Anyway, I was telling of my pageant experience, and she's like, I came to this workshop only because I was super intrigued of why would such a spiritual person do a pageant? So she had me in a category of somebody who was compromising because I had done a pageant. Yeah, it's fun. So anyway, jumping ahead, she ended up being so compelled by the way I couched the presentation of why I was drawn to do it, and the queen archetype, and what I've been able to learn about myself and all of these things. And so she ended up coming back to me and saying, I have misjudged you. And not only have I misjudged you, I think I need to do the pageant. And what's crazy is I started mentoring her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. She'd never done one. And she now knows that it's pretty much like her angels, the universe, or whatever, sent her to that workshop to show her that that's what she needed to pursue. And she ended up winning the pageant. Wow. It's my friend Carmel Larson.
Oh my gosh.
And she's now super successful as an entrepreneur. And she has 8 kids or 9 kids. I've lost count. But anyway, yeah. So when we ask for something,
just gaining experience in life.
Yeah. When we put in a pageant, you purposely put your beauty and your form and your heart and your soul and your voice out there for all to see. It's actually quite courageous. And I've seen some amazing breakthroughs. I've also seen the dark side of it. And so it's fun. It's fun. I have I call them my pageant friends. Like, that's how we connected, but it was only a mechanism. Yeah. It was the means to the end. It wasn't the end. And what I have learned since I memorized this quote by Louisa May Alcott: I do not wish for any crown, but that which all may win. Nor seek to enter any, I think, nor seek to enter any something castle or something except the one within. So that has been my post pageant credo. We are all wearing invisible crowns, and we must crown ourselves, and that's with God. And once that permission happens, you don't need to prove anything to a set of judges or to a peer group, or because we will always have the haters. Even Mother Teresa it was like the opposite of a pageant, right?
Mother Teresa. I know. So, opposite.
Yeah. So Marlo, I know that you have a couple of books. You've already been on the bestseller with your first one, which is around fostering your purpose, and you have a second one now that's not even going to be released probably for another couple months or so, and it's already hit a bestseller status. Your first book is Explore and Discover Your Purpose, and this one is so you just found out you're a healer. So you just found out you're a healer. Yes. Super compelling title. I have always been fascinated with women finding their purpose, and it sounds like you have too. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear your take on what that means. What is the purpose? Like, what is our purpose? I think we have many purposes, right? But usually there's at least 2 or 3 that rise to the top where it's like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Or on the flip side of that is I need clarity on what that actually is for me. So how do you kind of foster that? And how did that lend itself to writing about?
Well, because I went on my own journey with thinking my purpose was as a dance teacher. And that would be what I was going to do my whole life. I was really good at it. I was good at the technique part of it. I was good at the student relationship part of it, the parent relationship, directing, choreographing, writing shows, the whole thing. But then there was a little voice that said, the dance studio is not it one day. And I was already doing emotional release for people. And then it started getting stronger and stronger where I was feeling like there is actually more than I'm supposed to be doing. And I got a vision. I was sitting across, this is just a meditation in the form of a visual. Christ was sitting across the table from me, and he showed me a crumpled piece of paper and a blue marbled ball. And I actually was writing this in my first book, but then the editor said, this might be something that you just talk to more personally to people and that you don't put in your book. But I feel like this podcast is very personal, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it here. So, and the crumpled piece of paper represented my dance studio. And I was really amazed at that. And then the blue marbled ball represented my purpose on this earth as a healer. And so I knew exactly what that meant. It took me another 1.5 years to actually let go of the studio. So I was doing both for another bit of while. I actually would get dizzy and faint and nauseous thinking of selling the studio because it was hard to give up. Thinking, even though it was just a crumpled piece of paper, it was hard to everything I'd put into it. I sold my studio but I continued to teach for another 3 or 4 years by request from parents, to teach ballet. But, and then eventually I had to let go of that. But the only way that you can find that blue marble ball is to do your own work within yourself. It won't just come to you as an idea. It won't just, you might get an idea, oh yeah, I need to do this. But that only comes from when you do your deep internal work on yourself to be able to become the person that can hold the space for the people that you're helping. And because if you're not, it's not about what you are, it's the becoming of it. So even though I had that blue marble ball ahead of me and I was doing emotional release and other things, I knew that I wasn't yet the full person. I was still developing my skills. I was still becoming because you can only help others as far as you're healed yourself. And you can only hold space for that which you can hold space for in your own life for someone else when you're working with them. And so through the course, and then I learned through Spirit that I was supposed to be writing a book. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know how that was going to be, but I knew it was supposed to, that I'd be a writer and that it was going to be an important part of my life and that I would be reaching a lot of people through writing to help heal. And so it took me maybe 4 years before the book actually got written. And how that happened was I was in a BNI, a Business Network International group, with my seat being as a transformation coach. And I was seeing clients at a much higher level than just emotional release. very, deep inner work, getting people evolving at a very quick pace where you take off lifetimes or years, whatever you want to call it, off of the process of, of your personal evolution. And so I was doing that. And then I was sitting in BNI and I thought, this book is not going to become real until I show the universe I'm so serious about it, that I am willing to do everything to make sure it happens. So BNI was where I was getting most of my referrals from my clients. And so I thought, that's actually, that will show the universe, show source, show God that I am serious about getting this done and that I believe the promptings that I'm getting at a very deep level. So I announced to BNI that I wasn't, that this was my last day. And it took me a few months. I the day before I found the perfect person to help me write the book, I was at yoga class, just depressed. I was in the shower going, am I just one of those dream chasers? Am I somebody that thinks things and I'm like all fanciful and stuff like that? Because this book is not happening. Because I was putting it on my calendar every day to write. And I would go down, and on that time I wrote, and I thought I'm the only way to write is to write. And so I'd go down and write. And then one day I had on my calendar 9:00 to write, and I was like feeling depressed. This is the day after the yoga class. I'm like, what's going to happen today? Is this ever going to happen? And then I got this prompting to look at YouTube. I thought, oh, that's the biggest distraction on the planet, right? If I start YouTube, I'm never going to write anything. I'm going to get stuck on YouTube. But I listened to it, and right there was an ad for a book coach, and I instantly recognized her as my soulmate for the person to help me write. So I hired her, and then it was done. And I had written in my calendar, this is the day I'm going to have it done, hell or high water, right? And it was in December. And by then I just meant manuscript and then find an editor, which I had no idea how to do, but I was doing it, right? And so, I hired her, and then I got my whole book done, edited, and on published as an ebook on that date. So when you have true promptings of things that you want in your life, you can't do it by yourself. That's the biggest thing to understand, is there's somebody out there that has been through the process.
Always.
That can go so much faster than if you try to go it alone. If you go it alone, you might figure it out by the time you're 85, or you can figure it out in the next little while. So I've always kept my channels open to, God use me to help build this army here on the earth of healers, and help me find the people that can help me do that. And also lead me to the people who are the healers, because the first book I wrote, Explore and Discover Your Purpose, I wrote it to more of a general population of, I wrote it to at-home moms, but I wrote it to at-home moms, that were wanting to find their dream career, something that they could really sink their teeth into and know that they can do really well at it. But then as I was writing my second book, I realized that my greater calling isn't just in helping people find a career in general, but it's in helping other healers discover who they really are. Because if you're planted here on the earth as a healer, there's a specific job for you to do, and you have a unique gift in how to manifest that. And so I wrote the second book, So You Just Found Out You're a Healer, to the people who understand, you know what, I think I'm one of those. But now what do I do?
Right.
Because I see myself as having a calling of raising all four corners of the earth and finding the healers and raising this huge army of people that are here to raise the vibration of the planet, help heal the ills and the diseases. I've listened to one of your other podcasts, Cherie, about when our bodies are like the last place things show up and we get sick. We don't even have to get it to that point. And then we can go even do much better than that. We don't have to just survive. We can thrive. We can have full communication with God in such a way that you never thought was possible. You can understand your true identity in ways that you didn't even think was in your, I mean, it's not even in your paradigm. If you're listening to this, whatever you don't know is not even in your paradigm now to know. You can think, oh yeah, I understand, but there's so much deeper and further to go. And I'm talking to myself, I'm talking to all the listeners, talking to Sheree, everybody, wherever you are right now, it's only because that's as far as your paradigm can reach. But the further that you go into depth of who you really are, and the further you go into knowing your identity as a divine being, the further that paradigm opens up, and you realize there's so much more to it than we even thought possible.
Well, and that's the qualifier there is there, it's transcending thought. And, you know, like you said, you could wait till you're 85, but really it's experience that brings us, and that's the part about the energy and the vibration of the healer path is that, it is often cloaked in what I call rites of passage that are excruciatingly painful and look from the outset as quite dysfunctional. And in fact, you know, I'm sure my older sister wouldn't mind me saying this. We did my very, very first 2 episodes of the podcast were my sisters and I. And one sister is a year older. And then we lost a sister who's 2 years younger than me to suicide. She was a mother of 5 when she took her life. And then, but the other sister that was on the call was, and my sister that died, it was about 14 years ago, I think. Yeah, just barely 14 years ago. But yeah, it was very devastating. And then my younger sister, Robin, who's 12 years younger than me. So anyway, we were talking about how, because we all see ourselves as a family of women healers. And the ways that even my sister who took her life, she was a musician. She sang with the voice of an angel. She ran a music school out of her home. She had perfect pitch. She played many instruments by ear. So she was very, very highly gifted. The other side of that is bipolar, right? So her medium of healing was through music, and she touched so many hearts that way. And on the flip side of that was sometimes high creatives have that melancholy or that propensity for mania or severe, lows, high highs, low lows. But the other thing is part of her work as a healer, even through her death, and I would never exonerate her choice or hold it up as a standard by any stretch, was definitely not the high road. But what it did do is it opened a space for healing in our family, to really get answers for mental illness, to look at life and destiny differently, to see all those things. And even the work I do in emotional healing is born of losing her. And she actually committed suicide the year I was Mrs. Utah. So there was so much packed into that learning. But Tanya, the reason I brought all of this up is, okay, so my younger sister, so my mom, she does foot zoning, and she's also a very intuitive woman. She's also
my daughter-in-law does too.
Oh, really? So yeah, for those who don't know what that is, it's kind of like reflexology, but it's more intuitive and it has a very particular technique. And so she's been able to help a lot of people avoid a lot of health problems just by working on their feet. So she's very hands-on healer. My sister Tanya is, she has shaman-like abilities is the only way I can describe it. She felt energy burning in her hands in her 20s at church. Didn't know what to do with it. Anyway, created a whole path for her learning around that. And then my youngest sister, Robin, she started out with massage, and she just developed, started having children. And then she has joined me in our doTERRA business, but, or I should say I joined her, but all of our lives have not looked like, as the gifts. And by the way, I see my modality of healing is the tone, timbre, frequency, and vibration of the word, language, messaging, writing, speaking. That's my way of not only gifting myself or being I guess you could say sometimes even a conduit for the divine to give someone a message, but also for my own. It heals me to share that. It does something to my own frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My sister Tanya has been married 5 times, and she's okay with me sharing this. She's super open. Never had children. Was in several abusive marriages, 2 of which I was very instrumental in filing restraining orders to protect her life.
Oh, wow.
Putting people away and things like that. So, but she is so gifted. She is so, and she's on the other side of it now. She does life coaching and whatever. She's in a healthy relationship. She's super strong. She's got all this wisdom born of life experience that, again, maybe to the outsider wouldn't necessarily take her seriously because of her history, but it is because of her history that she has stepped into the space she is in reclaiming herself. And she has, she gave me a quote that I'll read later.
About transcending.
Yeah. Well, and I would love to hear your definition of what a healer is, in the context that you're talking about, which is a beautiful vision, by the way, when you were sharing it about the 4 corners of the earth and gathering people that are of the light and who want to serve others and to lift the planet. That's such a beautiful, strong vision. I honor you for having and holding that. It's very strong. But how do you define a healer in your context?
Good question. A healer is somebody that can take somebody and help them transcend the lessons that they're here to learn on Earth in a much more quick way. And for a lot of people, a lot of trauma and pain would not even be able to be healed in a lifetime. And that's why a lot of people die with things unhealed. A healer is somebody that has the capacity, and God is working through them and with them. And when they're with a client, to help the client move into a higher state of vibration, to release the negative, dark energies around them, to bring out more of who their true divine essence is inside, the eternal part of them that's inside, so that it becomes larger and more in the front. And so there is no dysfunction once the person is healed. There is a greater communication with God. The client can completely feel the communication with their deity. There's energy flowing through their body in a healthy way. There's not blocked areas of the body. So a healer is somebody who can take somebody and help them heal trauma, raise their vibration. And everybody has trauma to some extent, like whether it's generational or whatever. It doesn't have to be a big trauma in this lifetime, but if it is, a healer that can really hold space can do that as well. So somebody that can help somebody transcend the pain of living here on Earth.
Wow, that's a great definition. I love it. And when you say clients, I think there are a lot of people who are light workers like this that don't have traditional clientele. Maybe they're just doing this unawares, right? Because they're just earth angels and they just have that capacity to hold space for people's trauma and sit with them and grieve with them. And
Right.
But then there are those in the category. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say, if there are people out there that are light workers by birth and they are holding space for people in different capacities, if I would invite them to look at that and to take it into more, to take it more seriously, possibly, if their life circumstance permits it, and be more purposeful with it, because they could actually serve in a much greater way.
I agree. And that was my next point. I think that, as we are in this massive feminine consciousess shift on the planet where this, really the earth is going, yeah, I do too. Yeah. And it's like the earth in and of herself is going through this metamorphosis of healing the trauma, moving to a higher vibration, removing some of the darker forces, heightened polarity, taking her inner essence as nurturing, nourishing for our bodies and souls, and bringing it out more. So there's greater communication with the divine and this energy flowing. So everything that you described as the elements of I guess, a healer, is what's happening with Mother Earth in her ascension, essentially, and all of her activations deep within her core. And for those who feel many women feel the shift. We feel, the frequencies changing, things are feeling more pronounced, emotions are running higher. There's things happening with the moon. There's things happening with the sun. There's planetary shifting literally happening. So when you have an intimation like, hey, maybe I take my natural spiritual gifts to the next level. I know a lot of women who have a belief that taking her spiritual gifts and making it like I don't want to say a traditional business or taking clientele would be commoditizing the divine, or would be priestcraft, if you will, or would be, and I have my own thoughts about that, but I'm really curious how you would talk someone who's just, burgeoning and things want to express, but she has this belief maybe that it might not be spiritually appropriate to quote unquote hang her shingle or step into
hang
that
her shingle. Yeah. So the way I have seen that is when you're not making, if you're dabbling, everybody else is going to dabble. Like if you just say, oh, I'll just help you with this and this, then your results are just going to be the person on the other side just gets this and this. If you are committed to what you are doing and the other person is committed, money is just an energy. It's not an evil, it's just an energetic exchange. And so it's just saying, I am the person who's investing in themselves. If you go to a doctor, is a doctor selfish for doing a surgery because the person needs it to live? But we don't think of it in that way. But for some reason, sometimes when it's in a spiritual level, now we do spiritual things all day long. I'm a mother of 5 like you are. We do constantly, we're helping and serving each other and uplifting and helping each other with all kinys of things.
Motherhood in and of itself is a healer field. It's a healer work.
It is. It really is. But when somebody decides to say, I'm serious about stepping into what I'm doing, the exchange of money should never be a fear, because it's just the commitment. It's just the commitment saying, I'm going to show up and I'm ready to invest in myself. And the person doing the healing knows that the other person is committed, because I know that when things are free, people don't necessarily take them very seriously, and they don't work very hard.
There's no personal investment. It's an investment.
No personal investment. Yeah, it's an investment. It's kind of like if you sign up for a class and it's free, you might go a few times, or you might think, oh yeah, I took this class, but you don't value it. But if you pay for a class or you pay for an event, I know you do lots of events. If somebody buys a ticket to your event, there's more chance of them showing up. So you're actually holding space for their success by having somebody commit to having their work done, if you want to say it that way, because you're holding space for their failure if you don't.
Right. And I think through life experience, you can have multiple degrees that are spiritual, emotional in nature, that can only come through experience, that would be the equivalent of a PhD. And so you should be compensated to facilitate that, just as you said, a physician or, a practitioner in more of traditional art.
Professional speaker.
Yeah, exactly. I think too, I mean, I've been trained in healing arts. About 15 years ago, I took Laura Jacobs' holistic health detective coach class, and I learned about muscle testing. I've been trained in emotion code. I recently became a perfect healing practitioner about 2 years ago. And it's all about exactly what you're saying, through practicing this art of intuition also. Muscle testing is only a backup for my own personal intuition about someone. And we can get to the heart of things
Right.
super quickly on all layers and levels of the body. But what's interesting is that
Yeah.
the resistance that, okay, so I know you'd back me up on this. I've held this belief for a while that we are just the people that are on the earth right now are merely the cleanup crew. We are the living embodiment of so many generations before us that did not clear particular issues. And it lives in us. It lives in us energetically. I mean, if you study epigenetics or neurogenesis or neuroplasticity or any of those things, a lot of Bruce Lipton's work, we are through our bodies, not just our souls, because there is a purpose for the body. We are here, we are incarnated into a very particular lineage to be awakeners and healers, because that's the season of the earth that we're in. And so all of the generations before us, all of the ancestors before us look to us and guide us to those healers. I can tell you straight up, I shouldn't even be here with my family history and with the things I've walked through. And I have at various times in my life sought out healers. And some of it I had to do in secret because it wasn't, it's a lot more accepted now, but I'm
mainstream.
Talking about, it's more mainstream now. Like I'm talking 20 years ago. Okay. But I knew there was something very profoundly healing and spiritual about. I knew it was true, but I have been to bad quote unquote healers. I've been to people. For me, the qualifier is: are they in their ego and are they taking all the credit for their work? Because that's a huge red flag for me.
Right. Right. Yes. And it's the fruit. In their fruits you shall know them.
Yeah. And it's usually their energy that I'm reading as I'm getting them as they're working on me.
Oh yeah.
So we don't have to show up perfectly.
Yeah, I have some clients. Yeah, we don't have to. And I have had some clients say, I want to go get this astrological reading. And I'm like, is this good for me to do? And I'll read the energy of the person giving it, because it's not about the astrological reading. It's about, is the person that's reading it, where is she coming from? Where is she getting her information from? What,
what's her source?
And what's her source? Exactly. So that's what you want to check on, is just what you said, check the energy of the person. And if you feel fear, check to see if it's your own fear because you're actually going to be healed, or is it because the person? So what is, what's the feeling you're getting?
You can experience, if it's new to you, if the healing arts are new to you and you go to a healer, even if it's a healer of the light, a high vibration healer, you can still feel what you said. You can still feel fear and cognitive dissonance because it's new to you. It doesn't fit your current paradigms.
Exactly.
And so your mind body doesn't know how to do it, but your cells, something brought you there. And I will say this, like I've been in dark. I've been to people who thought they were working for the light, but I experienced darkness, and it still was learning for me. It was still powerful because I gave myself permission to be there. And I think that's a good thing to say. Okay. Yeah, it's a good place to be. Just be curious. It's okay to be curious.
Yeah, it's okay to be curious, and it's okay to check in and say, okay, and be honest with yourself with like, am I ready? Like, say, let's assume that the healer is getting their work through a divine source and you're going to get great results. And then you feel fear. Well, that the ego does not want you to change. The ego's job is to keep you the same. And the opposition's job is to make you not go. Opposition will work on you really hard for you not to go because they don't want you to go there, because then you're going to improve yourself and they could be gone. So
they will be rendered obsolete if you get healed.
They'll be rendered obsolete in your life. Exactly. And so, and off the planet, if it's up to me, the way I work. So, and then you say, because it's scary to heal sometimes because the changes can be really quick. And I love the quote by Marianna Williamson. I can't do it verbatim, but that, it's not our darkness that we fear, but it's our light. It's our power that we fear the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that a lot of people, they start seeing who they really are, and it can get really scary to see, oh, I actually am a divine being with a grand purpose. And some people are ready for that, and some people aren't.
Yeah. And I love that Marianne Williamson quote too. And I think, the reason people aren't healing is because they're afraid of it. And sometimes this is even reinforced, ironically enough, within religious structures. Some people actually hold the belief that women shouldn't heal, only men should. Sort of, healing the sick and things like that. And so, I think you do have to give yourself that permission and that allowance, because there is a stigma and there is a fear, a real collective fear around healing. And that is why we aren't. And letting that love in and being curious and letting things flow is what ultimately, the light of Christ, whatever people want to call it, is ultimately what heals people. But everyone has the capacity to channel that if it's their desire. And mothers do it all the time. Mothers do it all the time.
Understood. Mothers do it all the time. Women have a specific intuition with their children that nobody can explain. And, we know, I've saved 3 kids from drowning because I thought I need to go look at the pool, and I had no reason to go look at the pool. And so I thought somebody was watching them. That happened 3 times.
Wow.
Where I'm like taking a nap and I'm like, I got to go look at the pool. I wake up. And as I'm walking, going, okay, I need to relax. This is why I'm so tired, because I never sleep. And then there's my child in the pool. Yeah. Floating. So, and just many other things, it's kind of interesting. There was this one site, I don't know what his title was, but he was teaching that trust your intuition, but at the same time, don't trust your intuition. And what I mean
it's a double message. We get double speak all the time on this. Like, you can get your answers, but it has to fit in this little construct, this little box.
It has to fit in this construct, and a lot of times we have, and if it's not in that construct, then it's not right. And so it's
coming from Satan.
The courageous people, it's coming from Satan. So the most brave people are the ones that are willing to really see the truth, no matter what somebody else might say about it. And the other wise thing to do is to realize that we also have things in our psyche that can make us think we're thinking something, but it's only because of a past experience assigning it that. And so then we're making a wrong conclusion. So I don't know if I explained that right, but you can draw a conclusion on a feeling that you get, but it's only because there's been something imprinted from before to make you think that that's what that means, that's what that feeling into that answer meant. And so healing that is to remove those false beliefs in there. So then when you get messages, it's a clear, this is really what is meant, not, you putting a meaning to it that's not really there. So that happens a lot with people too.
That's so interesting. Yeah. And I have always said this, that people who have a calling, it's undeniable. There will come a time where, if this is your path, and what will be revealed, things will happen in your life. You don't even really have to seek it out. It will show up for you. Certain people.
It will show up.
Yeah, it will. And it's usually wounded people around you, and how you respond intuitively to those wounds, and your compassion and your desire to learn. Someone will say something, a book will show up. Someone will mention a training. What have you found to be kind of the strongest facilitators for people moving into official healing work, like actual modality?
There's the modality that I trained in is shamanic work, and I have found that to be the most thorough of work that is done. Every work has a vibration to it, and the vibration is its capacity to heal. So if you have 1,000 as perfect vibration, perfect God consciousness, and 0 is the opposite. If a healing modality rests somewhere in, like, say, the 400s, then it can't heal you past that vibration. Or if a healing modality only rests in the 300s, then it can't heal you past that modality. Past that, you can't ride. The modality doesn't have the power to take you higher than that, even if the practitioner does. And usually, the practitioner matches the vibration of the modality. And so, the work that I have found is it just sounds funny to say, but since we're talking about vibration, it's in the 900s. And so it has the capacity to take, to heal about anything that's there without a ceiling. So there's a lot of modalities out there that have ceilings on them, and they can be helpful if you're need to bump up to that, but then eventually you outgrow it. So you'll notice that if you're in a modality that you outgrow, that's because the vibration had a limit.
Right. I totally believe that. I want to share an interesting story. I went to New York for a Mary Magdalene retreat. It's more of a scholarly Mary Magdalene retreat, a woman who wrote a book and was Harvard trained. And it's a great book. But anyway, it was at the Omega Institute, which is a really cool community of just a bunch of like cabins and places for workshops, and different people come in, different healers come in, and thought leaders, really cool people. Anyway, I had this shoulder issue, and I was like, I can hardly even travel home. So they had these different healers on site that were kind of booking themselves. And I went to a shaman, and I have seen shamans before of different, capacities and different ways. And he strictly worked with sound. And so I laid on a table, and I could already tell the second I met him, his vibration was very high. He was a lot shorter than me. He had a long gray beard. He was wearing white. And
those are the most fun.
Like if somebody would told me this like 10 years ago, I would have been like, I'm running out the door right now. But it's just where I've come to.
Yeah, that was me too.
It's just like, you know what, there's so much beauty around. There's so many ways to be a healer, but he had stepped into it. He had stepped into it. So I lay on a table and he asked me some questions, and then I closed my eyes and he beat a drum. That's all he did. And he said a few things.
Oh, wow.
And I could feel a loosening. And then he asked me about some tenets of my past and my childhood, and I have been in the process of divorce since the beginning of the summer. And so he asked some things around that. There was some things there that were lodged in my shoulder. And as soon as he talked and spoke it out and beat the drum, I actually fell asleep. And while I was asleep, I had I call it a mini dream of the issues. And it was a flash of all the issues. And then I woke up and he finished up. And to this day, and that was like in July, that had been a lingering issue for about 3 months, but it really hit its apex on campus at the Omega. It's gone. Like it left. And it was like,
beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
That's beautiful.
It was one of the most amazing healing sessions.
Because that healer, he could hold space for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He could do that. That's great.
Yeah. And it makes me want to have a session with you now. So anyway,
let's do it.
Yeah, we need to get together. So I think, I really want to direct people to your work, and I will have some references in the show notes where people can go. And if you don't get to the show notes, you can is your stuff on Amazon? Is that where people can find your books?
Yeah. So it's on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon, and you'll have the link for them to get, listeners of the podcast. I'm happy to send out a free copy.
Like an advanced reader copy. Cool.
Well, of the Explore and Discover Your Purpose, that one's completely done. And then so you just found out you're a healer. I'm supposed to be getting my manuscript back tomorrow from the editors. And so there's nothing to send yet except for my first messy draft that I sent to the editor, but it should be done pretty soon. And then I'd be happy to send that out.
So that's in PDF form, correct? So they would be able to download that. The first,
the Explore and Discover Your Purpose is on Amazon and Kindle and Audible. But I'm also happy to send them a free copy of that as a download. And then the And then the one that I'm currently writing will be available. I could probably send it out in about another month. Feel good about giving it to people. I'm just in the editing phase right now. So you just found out you're a healer. But what was really fun was I put that out on Amazon for pre-order for 99 cents. And it's there right now if you want to get it for 99 cents on pre-order. And overnight it went to number one, and I hadn't even told anybody that I put it up. And
beautiful.
My publisher came to me and said, what did you do? Did you send out to a big list or something? I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. I didn't even tell my husband I put it up. I just put it up there for pre-order. And then in the morning, she's like, well, it was number one in the morning, which she says, I've never seen that happen. So I think that means that there's a lot of healers out there that are finding out that they're healers.
Yes. I meet them all the time. It's crazy. It's crazy. And you know what? Just because two people might be practicing the same modality, does not mean that there's so much room for healers. In fact, that's like telling two
that
authors
is treated equally.
Yeah, it's like telling two authors or two psychotherapists, oh, don't fill your practice because there's already people doing psychotherapy, or don't write a book because there's so many books out there. Your essence and energy, light, messaging, voice, tone, energy, frequency is needed on the planet. That's why you're here. And so attaching to like resources that can help facilitate what that is. And then you just have the courage to go for it, study it, dive in. Don't just dip your toes, go on a bender, self-educate. That's exactly what I did. And, I'm still fleshing that out. I don't actually take clients. I only work on specific family and friends, and I don't charge just because I have another business, and I will be writing and different things, and continue to. But I think people show up in your space in absolute perfect divine timing. They either bring you to your next level as a healer in whatever way, shape, or form that manifests, or you're there to serve them, or they're there to serve you. And it's beautiful and it's perfect. So just like our discussion, because you came at the perfect time. You messaged me and I had a space open.
I know. I just happened to run across you, and I was just compelled just to send you a message. And then lo and behold, you had a spot open. So yay.
Well, Marlo, I'm going to direct people to your work, and then I'm going to reach out to you personally because I'm really compelled by what you're journeying with. And that's really opened up to you in a really condensed amount of time, which is fascinating to me. That's how it works though, right? It just comes, and you're like, and I've always said this, like usually your soul, just comes when you're ready. Our body is not in the driver's seat. Our soul is. And our soul, she knows where she's going. And so sometimes we just take a backseat to that and let it be what it is. It takes a tremendous amount of courage for those of you guys listening to take the voices of authority figures or those who think they know your gifts. They don't live in your body. They don't have your ancient soul. They don't know what your capacity is. So listen and tune in. And I'm sure, Marlo, your work will help direct them exactly how they can do that. So beautiful stuff.
Oh, thank you, Sheree. Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Me too. So what is a healer? A healer is someone who's been through trauma. They've moved to a higher vibration. They're removing these darker forces and entities and whatever through them and out of them so they can show up as a force to do the same for others. And sometimes that's very subtle and sometimes it's more overt. So even listening to this, don't feel like you have to go like hang a shingle somewhere, hang the sign on your door or what have you. Sometimes it's just within your own sphere of influence. Some people do this as a profession and there's no shame in charging money for that. We could do a whole episode on that. But at the same time, that greater communication with God, the energy flowing through you, that is what is kind of pulsating through you to be gifted to others. One of the saddest things we do in this lifetime is try to squelch that and silence it and mask it and pretend it's not there. And I did that for a very, very long time in my life. Knowing and trusting your discernment is key. Knowing that you're aligned and you won't be deceived and that you can trust where you're being taken, and then you will be carried there. and then you will be shown the next steps. Thanks again to Marlo. And I would encourage you to get her free book. In the show notes, you can find an offering for a free ebook of hers on purpose, finding your purpose. And so that is in the show notes, as well as she's even willing to give people an advanced manuscript on So You Think You're a Healer. So check all that stuff out, and we will talk to you next Wednesday on Women Seeking Wholeness. Have a great week.